wrong kind of regulation could kill the market. Well, I don't know. Actually, having said that, Bitcoin's not been very good at dying, and I don't think any of the cryptos or the blockchain is good at dying either. So it'll probably stymie it. Maybe not allow it to reach its full potential as quickly as it could. But the most important thing is appropriate regulation, and you can't really regulate something until you understand what it is you're trying to regulate. And at the moment, I think there's been, well, up till now, there's been a lot of head scratching. I think perhaps inertia as well from regulators, because they don't know what to do, because they feel that likely or not, if they do the wrong thing, it's just going to make it worse, which, is usually the case. So the right kind of regulation is really the key. I mean, we've got some ideas of what we believe should be the right kind of regulation, and light touch is a word, but a phrase, but it's not. It probably doesn't sort of identify what you're doing. It could be allow people to just get away with things. I kind of think that the treating these businesses like businesses, using the token sale as a means to an end, and as George, in my view, quite rightly pointed out, the strength the token mechanics is the key. We refer to it as well as a strength of protocol, which is what is that token doing? If you take that token, as George said, out of the equation, does the whole thing fall apart? And does it just mean that it was just a means to an end to raise some money with cheap money? And that would be the first thing that you'd actually fall. I think you need to identify in terms of perhaps even regulation, standardization of procedures. A lot of token sales, if their focus is on the development and the token for the business, and not so much focus on the capital structure of how the business is actually set up, because it is ultimately going to be a business at the end of the day, or it's supposed to be. So we're looking at sort of, how much share capital should a company have that raises 20 million? Should it be able to raise, should it have a 500 quid? Means if it gets sued for 2,000, 10,000, a million, it's just going to walk away and leave the token holder stranded. So, I think that area's got to be looked at in terms of, it's probably not called regulatory capital, but ring-fenced, amounts of the proceeds they're raising. Standardized procedures for performing the ICO, because everyone does their own thing, and maybe there are some areas where there could be some standard formats. Yeah, those are the kind of things. I'd just like to touch on very briefly our criteria when we invest is that we've only actually invested in 2 token sales to date, because we have a portfolio of other companies, and we're moving into the space quite pragmatically. We're not got we don't trade. We're not token traders, so we don't have those skill sets to actually sort of create multiples and get out very quickly on those situations. But we look at the businesses from a long-term perspective, and so our main interest is in the equity, and we like to also get tokens as well, but we look at the tokens as a bonus to the equity. And we take the view of, if they're creating this business using the token sale as the means to the end, everything else fits our criteria, and the equity at the end of the day should be worth something, because they're building a proper business. At least that's the plan.
You must do your due diligence. You must research. If you want to invest in an ICO, you must look at who's actually doing it. What's the team? The board team. Have they been around a long time? Are they? Do they look like it's a scam? And if it looks like a scam, it probably is a scam. You must read their white paper. I used to hear stories that literally one piece of paper and people would raise £1 million on it. I mean, I'm amazed that actually people would commit. But unfortunately, people do. The greed factor kicks in, because they've seen what's happened with Bitcoin, and they say, oh, it's great here, I can now actually get on board with this type of token coin. Don't always let the greed kick in, and only invest what you can afford to lose. Don't overstretch yourself because you think, oh, this is going to make me billions. It probably won't.
Just something to think about is that because these ICOs are effectively permissionless, anyone can take part in them. I sort of see the world's power structures in in a bit of a sort of game theory dance, because as one country puts a blanket ban down, a neighbour says we're open for business, and there's clearly a lot of money in this space, and I don't even think we've begun to see exactly how big this could get. And so, much in the same way that you're interested in Gibraltar, there's Zug, Crypto Valley. There are places all over the world that are opening up their doors. So how, just as a sort of point to think about, how does the power structures of the world deal with something as powerful as decentralized technologies, which everyone can gain access to? And one last point I'd say is, have a think about how many millionaires Ethereum has made versus something like Facebook. I mean, here you have effectively anyone could access that ICO, anyone in the world, from 15-year-olds up to whatever age. And it's produced something that's quite remarkable, and that's something that I personally wouldn't like to see go away. I'd like to see everyone be able to access, but I agree there has to be a line in the sand somewhere to some degree. But those would be my 2 points.
Yeah, I'd just add one last thing to that, if I can, which is there's already existing legislation, of course, for fraud, and the reality of it is the bad eggs in the ICO game are, generally speaking, committing some sort of fraud. They're claiming they're going to do something and they're not, or they're misusing the funds in some other way. So I would suggest that there probably is some legislation that's already in use, but what will happen is it just pushes, if you over-regulate one market, it pushes it straight on. The internet is borderless, so the criminals will just adopt a new zone to work from. I think you're right.